This video, we will share some groundbreaking new developments that could send XRP into the stratosphere. So buckle in because the XRP rocket ship is fueled up and it's ready to blast off. The SEC is losing ground in the court systems as it shows a weak hand in its new lawsuit from Coinbase. And it looks like XRP might be on the verge of a settlement because of some key on-chain order flows, which could be the catalyst for a new bull move when we look at the major pivot point the price is currently at. Also, what can this chart tell us about the next few weeks and months regarding the price of XRP? Stay tuned through the rest of this video to find out. Hello and welcome to the Bull Runners YouTube channel. My name is Paul, and as always, our content is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This isn't intended to be financial advice. Investing in crypto is risky and requires patience, and at no point in time are you guaranteed to make money. We don't guarantee any results, and so since we aren't financial advisors, you have to do your own research before making a decision for yourself and your portfolio. Investing in crypto is obviously risky and you can lose money. And obviously we hold some of the positions in the cryptos that we mentioned on this channel, but that's because we're excited about them. And ultimately our opinion is rather bullish, but this is not a recommendation for you to do the same. Results aren't typical, so don't be typical. Stay bullish and let's get into the video. XRP is not a security, or is it? Exactly 1 year ago in the month of July, Judge Annalisa Torres stated that XRP was not a security when it sold XRP to the public programmatically through exchanges. In other words, they were selling it directly to retail investors. However, they did consider it a security when sold to institutional investors, and that was Brad Garlinghouse basically promising returns. But the fee and fine were so small, it's almost negligible. Needless to say, the waters are muddy right now between two separate rulings from Judge Torres and now Judge Hamilton in a class action case. Things are becoming absolutely confusing, which speaks to the broader issues at play. There's no clear path to regulatory clarity, while precedent leans in multiple directions, which ultimately falls on Congress and regulatory bodies. And in this article, as you can see here, on June 20th, Judge Phyllis Hamilton of the U.S. District Court from the Northern District of California tossed out most of a class action lawsuit Ripple faced. She only allowed one individual state law claim against the crypto firm and its CEO, Brad Garlinghouse, to proceed to trial. In her ruling, Hamilton suggested that the XRP might in fact be a security, breaking with the opinion of District Judge Annalisa Torres on New York's Southern District, who ruled last year in a separate case brought to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission that XRP was only a security when sold to institutional investors. Hamilton's ruling doesn't undo Torres's ruling, as Ripple executives have pointed out, but she's the second district judge to more or less disagree with Torres's assessment of XRP. If this all sounds confusing, that's because it is, even to crypto lawyers. For the single claim she allowed to proceed to trial, Hamilton applied the Howey test, a pillar of U.S. regulation based on the Supreme Court ruling, used to determine if an asset is a security or not, to XRP, and found that it failed on the third prong, writing this: the court cannot find as a matter of law that Ripple's conduct would not have led to a reasonable investor to have an expectation of profit due to the efforts of others. In other words, it failed the Howey test. So if something passes the Howey test, that would be considered a security. But because it does not hit that third prong, then you have to reasonably and legally assume that it is not a security, which is actually a win for XRP. So basically, crypto companies and respective investors are left to find out through the lengthy and expensive court process. But it may not be for much longer with this landmark lawsuit filed by Coinbase. And over here it says Ripple and Coinbase aim to leverage judges' ruling in the SEC's Binance case. So all of these cases and all of these judges, it seems that things are starting to come to a T. Coinbase and Ripple Labs are now looking to leverage their cases. And so when you have, multiple major companies fighting against the SEC for their undue and unfair process, things might be looking up. Leverage their cases with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. As Coinbase has explained, rulemaking is required here. In other words, they're just asking for a fair playbook. They just want a guidebook. They want a path to know exactly what the federal government and the regulatory bodies want out of crypto, how to register, how to do business, who to file things with, so on and so forth. Because the SEC has adopted a novel and sweeping yet still indeterminate view of the securities law, one that has never coherently explained but is attempting to impose retroactively on the digital asset industry through a scorched earth enforcement campaign. I don't think there's a better way that this whole process has been explained for how the SEC is consistently bringing up lawsuits. And to make matters worse, the SEC is actually attacking another major player you might know. Consensus is the company behind MetaMask, and now the SEC filed a lawsuit against them. Two significant legal developments have caught the attention of investors and stakeholders. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission lawsuit against Consensus, the developer behind the popular Ethereum wallet MetaMask, and Coinbase's legal action against the SEC. Here it says the lawsuit also targets Ethereum staking services like Lido and Rocket Pool, suggesting that the tokens such as Lido's staked ETH and Rocket Pool's RETH may fall under the category of registered securities. And that caused the prices of these things to dump tremendously. And as you can see on the chart here, that in a single day, while, Lido was actually prepping for a new move to the upside, and this was the current price action, on that news, it actually ended up dumping an entire 20%. So think about that. A company based on the simple news that the SEC wants to attack and bring a company to the courts can cause a company to go bankrupt. And arguably, they know they have that power. So when they do these types of things, they have to understand that they're also harming, companies that might not be in the wrong at all when there's really no path to regulatory clarity currently. So they know what they're doing, yet they continue to do it anyways, which harms people, it harms companies, it harms jobs, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, this company is now down from that day, really, upwards of 26%, which is pretty significant. RPL, obviously, also down quite a bit from that ruling when it was looking to make a new move to the upside. Still, the SEC can't take what it's dishing out. And so the SEC asks courts to quash the Coinbase subpoena in a legal clash over crypto regulations. On Friday, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission filed a response in the SEC v. Coinbase case. The subpoena seeks nothing, and this is what the SEC is standing on. The subpoena seeks nothing of relevance, imposes an undue burden on the SEC, and strongly disincentivizes public service. It should be quashed. In other words, it looks like their back's against the wall and they really don't want to take the time to do the due process and be completely forward and transparent about everything. So they don't want to give things up in terms of the subpoena. And so what they're asking is for this thing to be quashed, which is kind of funny when you really think about it. They never really take that stance for themselves, but when it comes to, being dished a bit of this heat, they can't seem to take it. So essentially their back's against the wall. It doesn't seem that the SEC is in a very strong position, and I would say so by their, basically asking the court to quash the subpoena. Now on to the final piece of news. Ripple moves $1 billion XRP from escrow and fuels the SEC settlement rumors. On July 1st, Ripple unlocked 1 billion XRP from the escrow while retaining 1.3 billion XRP in their wallets. Ripple initially moved 1.1 billion XRP to new wallets, then locked 800 million XRP back into escrow. Later, they transferred an additional 100 million XRP, leaving 300 million XRP available for future use. And so typically when you look at something like this, right, that's a whole boatload of XRP. And when you multiply that amount by the current price of XRP, that would come out to a whopping $144.6 million. So obviously that is not a small lump sum. That is quite a large amount of money. Now, I don't expect them to sell that much XRP into the open market. I don't think there would be enough current demand to basically get all of that, right? And buy it all up. In other words, if they started to try to sell that amount of XRP, the price would drop tremendously, hurting virtually everyone involved and Brad Garlinghouse, considering the majority of his net worth is tied up to the XRP token. So it doesn't make sense for them to sell that much, but just having access to it leads people and myself to believe that they're going to sell some of it to settle some of these cases, which in many ways, it's kind of like they're falling on the sword for the entire crypto industry. They're having to pay out of their own pockets here now, and arguably potentially harm the price of XRP in order to get real legal clarity. So it is, again, just a win-win for the entire industry. And if we get a settlement and we get real regulatory clarity, that is the path to a new all-time high for XRP, which now leads me into the charts. As they always say, when in doubt, zoom out. So I think a lot of the times we look at these charts and sometimes because we're invested in them and they're not doing much of anything at all, we get bored and we potentially have the urge to sell and go and chase another bag. But would it be wise to hold something like XRP through this current uncertain time, and arguably not only through the lack of regulatory clarity, right, but the lack of real price action and moves? So again, when in doubt, zoom out. I like to go to that monthly chart on a longer term time frame. And as you can see here, just generally speaking, right, we are trending up. And it doesn't need to be perfect when you're dragging and dropping these lines, as long as you're hitting as many points as possible. And yes, I do go through those wicks because ultimately we're being supported here at this trend line. So from a monthly time frame, basically back since March of 2020 at that local low, we've been supported. And as you can see here, we are officially at that major trend line support on a monthly time frame. And the last couple of months haven't really given us much to be excited about. But then again, the entire crypto market has been sold off. And as you can see, even from the perspective of Bitcoin, since March, really, in that local high at $73,000, we just ranged and traded sideways between $71,000 to $60,000. So not much has really happened. And so you have to give a bit of grace to something like XRP. Now, I also want to look at something like and we'll go ahead and pull up the volume tool, and I'll actually go to a different chart. So for those of you guys who are maybe using something like TradingView and you're looking at charts, it's one thing to look at a line chart. And although I do like line charts, as you can see right here, line charts don't always tell us the full story in terms of, sell pressure or demand, because the wick is really telling us more of what's happening in that time frame, which is why I like to look at candles. Looking at candles tells me that there was some demand here, that when it dumped into this range at 42 cents, people bought it up. When it dumped yet again from 48 cents down to 45 cents, it, pumped a bit and got bought back up. And so although the price has consistently been declining, as long as volume or volatility have also been declining, it looks to me more like it is a demand zone. And although the demand and excitement aren't currently there, where there are no sellers, right, eventually there are buyers. When everyone has capitulated, right, you get to a point where now it is accumulation time, not distribution time, in the, famous words of Richard Wyckoff. So I'm going to hop on over to a different chart, the tethered chart on XRP from Binance, as you can see denoted right here. And the reason I use this chart is because it gives me more of a real view into the volume. And so sometimes, right, smaller exchanges simply won't have the same level of volume, and that won't give me the full story. So as you notice right here on the right hand side up top, we have 53.3 million shares traded so far today, whereas over here on this other chart, which has more price history but doesn't have the same level of trade volume, has only 1.2 million shares. So a pretty massive difference of almost 50 times. right? And so I really want to make sure that I'm also giving, a view into the proper volume. And as you can see here, right, volume since this local high at about 75 cents has just consistently declined. And now, based on this blue line right here, we have declined again and again and again and again. So until we start to see some buying and arguably a break above this 50-cent range, it's not likely we're going to make any new highs just yet. But if we break above the 50-cent range on a serious time frame, and I would argue that would be the daily to potentially even the 3-day chart. So we'll go ahead and pop on over to the 3-day chart. As you can see here, even just breaking back into this range where we're at right now of 47 cents is very healthy for XRP. So I would argue our real support and resistance right now would be this 47.5 cent range. And the fact that yes, we have dumped here, but we're not seeing any real wicks now to the downside right here, leads me to believe that we could potentially start to move and break above the 50-cent range, as long as we start to get more bigger buy days and buy volume bars right down here. But as you can see here, a lot of interest has left the market, and yes, we did get a lot of buying and demand right here. So this could potentially be the last major low or local low before a new high. Now that remains to be seen, and I want to be very cautious when I say that. That remains to be seen on whether or not we actually get support right here on Bitcoin. So if we start to break down below $60,000 on Bitcoin, $60,800, then chances are XRP is probably going to follow suit. If one is dumping, if Bitcoin is dumping 5-10%, it doesn't mean XRP has to dump, but it's highly likely it won't be pumping. So what I would like to see, right, is Bitcoin, if it did dump, XRP to remain relatively strong to Bitcoin and hold this range. But this is basically its last major point of support. So we are at that pivot point. We are at a point where, something's going to have to happen, and XRP is either going to have to start making new highs. And I would argue with a good outcome from, the SEC and the regulatory bodies, it has some serious legs and potential. But this also screams major loads of demand. And so I'm going to hop on over to a tool called Santiment. And from this chart right here, I'm going to explain what these lines mean and what's really happening behind the scenes. So right here, the green line would be the price of XRP. And so this was our peak at about $1.85 to $1.99. Again, these line charts don't always give you the wicks, but really we closed right around here. And then as you can see here from June, right, till current day, if you've been looking at that chart, this looks very similar. This is just the slow and steady trend up that we've experienced with consistent sell pressure at the 75 cent to 70 cent range. Currently, we're sitting at that 48-cent range. But what this yellow line denotes is the amount of XRP that major whales have been holding. So right here we have whales that hold between 1 million to 100 million XRP. And since basically this low right down here in June of 2022, right here, you can see that whales have accumulated a total of about 3 billion extra XRP, which is a boatload of XRP in dollars, okay? So throughout this entire year and 2 years now, XRP has been accumulated and added by whales. Whereas during the same time frame, retail investors, anyone that holds between 1 to 100,000 XRP, and 100,000 XRP would obviously be about $48,000 to $50,000, right, has actually plateaued and started dumping right through here, right? Speaking to the volumes at which retail investors are now capitulating and arguably just getting really bored. So as these guys continue to accumulate, and as the price ranges here and hits that major pivot point, right, something is going to have to break because volatility is extremely tight. And it typically what happens, right, when everything contracts is that we see an expansion. So I'm thoroughly expecting an expansion, and I would hope it's to the upside, and it would be likely the case unless, of course, right, the economic environment and Bitcoin and virtually all markets start to crash. But this is a very positive sign and an outlook for XRP. And finally, we are going to look at this chart right here. Okay, so this chart right here is the XRP divided by Bitcoin. In other words, for every one XRP, you can buy 0.00001 Bitcoin. Okay, what I'm really after is to look at this trend. And as you can see here throughout history, right, when this is pumping higher, it's because one XRP is equal to more Bitcoin, typically indicative of the fact that XRP is outperforming Bitcoin. When this thing is dumping, XRP is underperforming Bitcoin. Pumping, outperforming Bitcoin, so on and so forth. But since this high back in February of 2018, XRP has seen nothing but underperformance from the Bitcoin side. Now we could argue, and this is not like a technical analysis type of a chart, but we could argue every time that we hit this 0.00003 range, right, XRP is kind of done with its move. And so this right here from June 2022 through this range here is indicative of the fact that XRP has failed to outperform Bitcoin. And we can obviously look at both charts side by side. But what's really, really interesting and why I would expect XRP to start performing now, right, relative to Bitcoin, even if Bitcoin continues to range, is not only because XRP is typically lagging Bitcoin. In other words, when Bitcoin makes its all-time high, usually XRP follows it within a couple weeks to a month and then makes its all-time high while Bitcoin plateaus and tops off, but also because this chart has now recently reached the bottom of this range. And consistently when we're in this range right here, right, XRP tends to start performing really well. So all of these indicators are just leading me to believe that XRP is about due for a blast off. And now all we need to see is the right economic conditions. And currently we are seeing a lot of that accumulation. Even though interest is low, we are in the accumulation zone. So if we start to see volume start to pump bit by bit by bit and the volume bars get bigger, that would be indicative that real big investors are not only just accumulating, right, but now they are buying in mass for that next major bull run. So if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, be sure to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. Be sure to smash that like button. Leave us a comment for what you think is going to happen with XRP in the upcoming month, 2 months. And I appreciate you watching the video, spending the time with me, spending some time to learn. And if you haven't already, go to bullrunners.com, right? If you want to do analysis like this and get access to all sorts of cool bonuses and programs that we're going to release from the channel. So thanks so much for watching the video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.